Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Hi, Kahuna. Thanks for the raid.
Yeah.
Awesome to see you all. So this is my hubby, Erin Righ. For those of you who have not met him, he, of course, is also an Anvilite. And I'm so glad to see you guys. Thanks for joining me today. We were talking, what? It was... Oh, wow. Hey, thanks for the bit stillers. Right on.
Thanks, Stillers.
Yay! Oh, hello, Lorraine. Thanks for raiding. Oh, did we have another raid?
No, Lorraine came with the raid.
Zog's here, E-Songbird's here, Aegon's here. Hi, guys. Awesome. So nice to see you all.
Robert Reaper, nice hat. Yeah, I like it.
Yes, we live in Canada, so...
Yeah. Whoa. Lorraine just gifted
oh,
10
holy
tier
crap,
1 subs.
Lorraine. Thank you. Wow. Wow. Oh, and World Anvil's hosting. Oh, you guys are so awesome. Thank you for all the support.
Lorraine, you are crazy, girl.
Wow, guys. Wow. Thank you so... And Aegon's hosting us? Holy crap. Okay, wow. What support? This is so great. I'm so glad you're here to support Erin's first stream. That's so awesome. And Vorbara just followed. Welcome, Vorbara. I think I've seen you once or twice, but I think it's been a while, so I'm glad to see you again. Right on. Sub bombs. Dazzlecat's here. Q is here. Yay.
Roll Society is hosting us.
Robert Reaper says, I live in Michigan, aka Southern Canada. It's legal here too. Awesome. I'm going to take a picture, right, at some point, but right downtown in our main downtown area, right, we have like the government building, right, Service Canada
building.
Yeah.
Right next door is Hive Cannabis.
Yeah. I'm going to take a picture.
In the same building.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's the government building, and the cannabis store is in the government building. I'm going to take a picture, and it's going to say, meanwhile, in Canada, you know. Oh, Lorraine, you're so awesome. Thank you. Make new emotes. Okay, duly noted, and I will take the direction.
I'll help her make some emotes.
Yeah, he's good at that stuff, too, right? Dazzlecat says, I'm in Michigan, too. Lorraine says, Washington State, also Southern Canada, but you really still don't want us. I'm sorry, guys. As long as the plague is running rampant, we miss you.
We miss you. You know, you're our friends, but we can't risk our old people.
Yeah. Okay, so this stream came about because we were having a conversation yesterday, right? So it's kind of a spur of the moment thing, but I think it's going to be an ongoing thing, right? Mm-hmm. That's Aaron's intention. He was like, wow, the channel's doing so well. I wish I had something I could stream about because I want to help you out, right? And I said, you know more about game systems than anybody I know. You've been game mastering for How long? He said 40 years.
41.
41 years, right? He played the very original, absolute first ever came out basic Dungeons and Dragons thing before it was like, when they were still using Tolkien stuff before that became an issue, like ages and ages ago, right?
Yeah,
He's
the one that come in the little wooden box.
Yeah, the wooden box, right? And he's game mastered. I don't know, how many systems would you say you game mastered, babe?
Realistically,
Yeah, realistically,
150.
it's probably true, right? And for those of you who watch our Monday night stream, Toy Soldiers Old School, which is TTRPG Pathfinder First Edition that takes place in our Toy Soldier Saga world, right? On World Anvil, right? Then, yeah, he's the voice of the Game Master, and I think he has a lot to offer. So I hope you enjoy picking his brains. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
You may not be able to keep up with the chat today, so I will suggest that since the chat is very busy today, if you have a question for Erin, please type question in all caps.
Question in all caps so I can see that.
Yeah. All right. And I love you, and I'll leave you to it. And I'll see you later. Have fun, guys. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I don't know where people would like to start. If you got any questions, just put them in the chat. And like I said, I've game mastered about 150 different systems, and though I tend to towards certain systems like the D&D and Pathfinder. I love World Anvil too. It's really helpful. What do I think of Thaco? Well, I got mixed feelings about it since I grew up with it, of course. All right, it's definitely something that I cut my teeth figuring out. And yeah. Okay, question. What tropes do you like to avoid during your game session? Avoid, yeah. I like to avoid things like the 10-foot by 10-foot room with the orc in it. Right? I like to avoid things like you all wake up with no memory of what happened. Right? Things like that. The awkward tavern trope of session 1. Yeah, that's it's hard to say, really. I don't really have much of an opinion on that. I did not ever run Empire of the Petal Throne. I couldn't find anybody who wanted to play it with me. All right? And I've run a couple of con games. All right? How to use World Anvil and the ideas you have created to create balanced encounters and adventure modules. Okay, I find that World Anvil really is mostly useful for, well, obviously world building. Right? To create balanced encounters, you have to have a good idea of what your party is. Right? Parties obviously vary. Right? Even with the number of people that you have in your party. Right? My current adventuring group has 10 PCs in it. Right? So creating balanced encounters for them is a lot tougher than creating it for a four-player party or something like that. I've run a game with as many as 22 PCs in it. Right? And that, actually, I had 22 players in it. It was more like 27 characters or something, because some people were playing more than one character. What are some of the ways you start your first session, locations, etc.? Well, that's really a wide open question, Songbird. I like to start my first session. Well, that all depends on who I've got playing and what the concept of the game is. Right? Starting the party with a letter from the king or something like that, or where you can assemble them somewhere. Right? That's the big thing, is to get them assembled, right? So the first session I usually start with something common between all the characters. Yeah, that's good, Robert Reaper. Right? The last time I started a campaign in a tavern, I did it to turn it on its head. I named the campaign The Wizard's Challenge, started the PCs in the tavern with a wizard in it, and had the wizard have absolutely no interest in helping or leading the PCs. He literally said, I'm not some wizard sitting in a tavern waiting for adventurers to give requests to. Though he did eventually become a guide to the group after they worked hard to gain his trust, but at first he almost fought them. Yeah, it's cool. Dinosaur Bob. Question: did you ever get to run Gaiax's Dungeon Land through the Looking Glass? Yes, I did. I ran that for a long time group, the longest time running group that I've ever played. Right, called their adventuring group the Faceless Ones. Right, and I ran that one for them. It's too bad that you've never had anybody to run them for, because they are hilarious. Posture check, okay? Well, my posture sucks always, so. And hydrate. Okay. My favorite system. Currently, I would have to say that's Pathfinder. But I am looking into D&D 5th edition, and I like what I see with it. I was really hesitant because of that atrocity they called 4th edition. Right? But, I like what I see with 5th edition. Yeah, question, Pathfinder 1 or 2. I like them both. Right, I've got a subscription to the Pathfinder 2 stuff. I had a subscription to the Pathfinder 1 stuff. Right, right, and, but I like Pathfinder 1 for the complexity of it. Right, I like complex systems like that. I like 5e for the simplicity of it. I like simple systems like that. Right, 5e is miles above 4e, not even in the same ballpark, says Robert Reaper. I like 5e the best so far as a DM, And as a player, yeah, well, I like it a lot, what I've seen of it. Right? Robert Reaper says he got tired of Pathfinder because of how long it takes to build a character. Yeah, what I did is I got Hero Lab. Takes me about 10 minutes to build a character. Right? 5e just dropped some fun new feats in their latest Unearthed Arcana that have a lot of role-playing or multi-classing light, so people who want a class feature of a class don't have to dip into other classes. That's pretty cool. Shy Red Fox, yeah, I'm on Diane's stream here. I don't know how to change the label on there, so. Do you have one game world per campaign or expand one world with every campaign? That's complex, okay? Right now, I am doing one campaign per game world per campaign. Alright? But I've often crossed over my games. Alright, yeah, so eSongbird says, I found Pathfinder to be too number crunchy for me to enjoy it. Took the game out of the RPG, but yeah, everything is dependent upon your game master, to be honest. Alright? Yes, Pathfinder 2 does seem to be a good blend between the two. You're right, Dinosaur Bob. And I can take a friendly teasing, Shy Red Fox. I don't mind. In the 90s, were you tempted by the urban fantasy craze, and do you think White Wolf Black Dog changed the role-playing scene as a whole? No. I don't think they changed the role-playing scene as a whole. I think that they just jumped onto it and did a really good job. Right? I did play in the storyteller system. Right? I played vampire, I played werewolf, I played mage, I've played changeling, I played wraith. Alright, alright. But to be honest, that system falls apart at the high levels. Right? The math in it just doesn't work. Right? And it bothers me because basically by the time your characters are competent, they're too tough for anything around. Sable's monitoring the stream from the other room there, and yeah. If not, what thing has changed how you play the game over the years if you were forced to pick an area? What has changed in my gaming over the years is, well, I switched from roleplay to roleplay, right? From rolling dice to making worlds happen. Check out the Monster Maker features of 5e. I now tweak every creature or damn near, and it's simple to calculate challenge rating for it. I have considered often just using 5e and building a superhero campaign where the PCs are transported into a modern day world, and I know I could easily do it with how the system's set up. From what I've seen, it wouldn't take much. Yeah. Superhero games are hard to do for balance, but yeah, 5e could easily do a superhero game. How did you make the shift from role-playing to role-playing and world-building? I got older. I guess that's simply it. Alright. When I was younger, I wanted action. I wanted, scenes where I could imagine my character killing the dragon, or holding off the horde of orcs. But, as I got older, I switched to more wanting to figure out the problem of how the crown got to be from a strong empire to a failing polity. Right? You know, and role-playing that and finding, you know, scenes in there. Sable says she doesn't share my opinion about the storytelling system. Well, it's not, I don't have a bad thing about the storytelling system. It just falls apart at the high levels. You know, as far as a system goes, as far as background goes, as far as flavor goes, it was incredible. Right? And I didn't like what they did with the reboot of World of Darkness 2, The Search for More Money. Right? Right? But, you know, the storytelling system used by Scion does a lot better. So, has anybody else got any other questions now, or should I just start mumbling? What are my top 3 recommendations to new GMs? Okay, my first one is don't let your players run over you. Right? To remember that you're in charge, but by being in charge, you're also responsible for their enjoyment. Right? Right? And so keep yourself in charge of the game. Right? Try and keep the flow going. That's the big thing. That's a big thing too. Right? Is try not to break down and check too many rules. Right? Just make a decision on the spot and retrofit it if it doesn't work later. Right? And the third recommendation I'd have to new GMs would be remember that the game intent is to have fun. If you're putting in a lot of effort and not having any fun doing it, then maybe you should not be a GM, right? Because it is a lot of work, and you know, but it's a labor of love, right? You know, it's something that you're an entertainer, no different than a musician or a storyteller or a writer, right? You're entertaining people, right? And so have fun with it. Dazzlecat asks, what's your favorite monster? Goblins. By a long margin. And what's my go-to monster when I suddenly need one? Right? Usually it depends on what we're playing, but usually it'd be a nameless horde, right? Playing Rifts, the Coalition, stuff like that, right? They would just show up and deal with that. Dinosaur Bob asks, how do you handle that one weenie that insists his paladin deserves a flying mount, a holy sword of level 4? I give it to him. I'll be honest with you, right? The game is about having fun, right? Now, then I measure all challenges accordingly, right? He's got a flying mount and a holy sword, right? He should be able to handle vampire, right? And so I measure things accordingly, right? there's always going to be one weenie who thinks that they deserve everything, right? If it's not disrupting your game, right? If other players are not having fun because of it, right? Then then you've got to do something about the player. You've got to, either ask him to find a new game or make a game for him or something. Like, you got to get him out of there, because if it's disrupting your players, nobody's having fun, right? And if it's disruptive enough to you that you're not having fun, my best bet is to just ask them to play in a different game, right? Because there's always going to be one. Another campaign idea is high magic, high tech world, because honestly, what's the difference between a laser gun and a high damage range weapon, or a spacesuit and protection from void item, etc.? That's pretty much a given in our game world too, right? Clark's Law, right? Any technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic, right? Right. So, yeah, right. In the current world we're running, the Toy Soldier Saga world, right? Gnomes practice technology, and so do goblins, and they build fantastic devices, right? And we use the Pathfinder system, so it's just magic items. Works the same way. E Songbird asks, any memorial stories from your party? Memorial stories. Oh, which party? I've been doing this for 40 years. No, I can't think of anything right now. If I come up with something else, I'll let you know. Any resources for new GMs that I would recommend? Yes. I would recommend World Anvil. Right? It is the most powerful world building software I have ever seen. Right? And I have been involved with most of them. I have been involved with Tabletop RPG and Roll20, right? Fantasy Grounds, right? Yeah, Realmworks, right? And so I've seen it, and it's really quite the powerful thing. And I recommend at least a journeyman level, right? Just because, fuck, support the thing, Alright. Yeah, okay. Yeah, our Dinosaur Bob says that so did I. He's referring to giving the guy his holy sword and flying mount. Yeah, right? I put him on a ship. Flying mount, not very useful on a ship. Right? Are you in more favor of short, interrupted 2 to 3 hour play sessions, or prefer to have slightly less focused 4 to 6 hour half day night for a session, your main home game rather than extras? Secondhand, I don't have a preference for that. I've done as much as we when I was 16. I had to think there. We broke the world record for gaming without even knowing it. Right? We did 5 days straight of gaming. Right? And it's just all right. I like focused groups for getting things done, but I like, if you're gonna have a long role play session, I like to just let it go until it's done. Right? I don't like to rush things. My favorite monster is kobolds. I did use kobolds where they send out members dressed poorly and scavenge for gear and food while hiding and spawning. Kobold city built with expert traps and technology. Yes. I like kobolds too. Unfortunately, they do not exist in the Choice Filter saga. Lorraine says that she'd have him deal with the quest of befriending his mount, build it into a story, or maybe a holy sword talks back and leads on to a quest. My players have some magical items early, but they're part of a quest and makeshift balance for getting X early. Yeah, I generally put things in there that make them so that they have to have the item to deal with it. Alright? Aegon says, if you want to give the magic and tech agency, put restrictions on how magic works or need for technology. Exactly. I use Hero Forge for designing NPCs. I used to use Hero Forge. It's not a bad program. Yeah. All right. I use Hero Lab. All right, but that's only because I'm stupid and I bought like lots of stuff for it. Right. I guess I shouldn't lean into the bloody thing. Yeah. Well, it's time for a smoke. Yeah, I'm a dirty smoker. Well, I have smoked cigarettes in the past, but but honestly, I've smoked a pipe since I was 13 years old. Almost as long as I've been game mastering. What is my most memorable total party kill? My most memorable total party kill is the one that I did against a party of murder hobos. Right? Without exception, you'll get one party sometime when you're gaming that just wants to kill everything. You'll throw them up against, NPCs that are supposed to affect their outcome of their lives, and they'll kill them. So, I have an NPC in my world who is a Goblin Monk. A 20th level Goblin Monk. And he goes around dressed like a goblin and teaches Taoist lessons to those who cross him. Right? And it wasn't a kill because he's lawful good. Right? But they attacked him because he was a goblin, and he beat the bejesus out of them. They were all about 6th level, I think, at the time. Right? And because the first thing that I tell my players when they come into my world is that this world is not designed for you. It is designed for people. Which means that dragons don't give a shit that you're 7th level. If you go where there's a dragon, right, you can deal with the dragon. Right? They don't give a shit that you're only 7th level. Right? Well, they were killing everything that I put in there, so I decided to put this NPC in. And they immediately attacked him, so he beat them senseless, like, beat them all into unconsciousness, and took all their stuff, right? Left them naked, outside of town, right? And took and sold all their stuff for charity. All of it. All their magic items, all the everything. Yeah, Robert Reaper says he doesn't believe in leveling the world for the PCs either. Yes, I still level planned encounters, yes. Alright? You know, I try not to throw them up against things that they can't handle unless it's planned. Hey, Brianna. Alright. Yeah. But, as Siobhan the writer can tell you, they've run into things they couldn't handle before. She's one of my players. Oh, True Undead Hero's here. Hi, True Undead Hero. Alright, so... most memorable character death. That's a really difficult one. There's been so many dead characters over the years. I think that... are you guys at all familiar with the Tome of Martek series of modules, I3 through 5? Right? Right? I had a character in that game, right, who was a mage, right, who, in the course of the game, you have to go into this tomb, right, and in the first module, right, where you're trying to find, the tomb of the pharaoh, right, to break a curse. And in there's this, was described as a painting of a sky scene with a flying boat in it. So I went to touch it. Well, apparently what it was an extra dimensional portal outside the pyramid 10,000 feet off the ground. Right? And when I failed my dexterity check, I fell out of that. Fell 10,000 feet. This is a module for, I think it's 3rd to 5th level characters at this point. 1st edition AD&D. Right? So I fell 10,000 feet, and I'm a mage. I did not survive. So they reincarnated me, because we had a druid with a reincarnate scroll, right? And I came back as a brown bear. It was an interesting character to play for a while. Secondhand Samurai asks, do you enjoy any of the system by Robert D. Laws, Gumshoe? I loved Gumshoe. Right? Yeah. I loved Gumshoe. Right? Is this too much against sandbox agency and wholesale? Would you rather lean school? The answer is not on your character sheet style. It all depends on who I'm playing with and the age of my players and the maturity level they're in. Alright, I have to say that it's sometimes easier to let characters roll dice and give them the answer than it is for them to come up with it on their own, because their characters may be far more intelligent than the player is. Alright? So I prefer the answer is not on your character sheet style, but I like giving them an out. Alright, okay, Robert Reaper said, that reminds me of the Wizard's Challenge I referred to research. There was the first campaign I ever ran, though the incident referred to was about a year ago, when I took that 2nd edition campaign and merged it with the Tomb of Annihilation 5th edition campaign. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Alright, first campaign I ever ran was, let me think here. Keep on the Borderlands, I think. Yeah. Keep on the Borderlands, for those of you who aren't familiar, is one of the earliest modules that they put out. Right? And I DM'd that one in 1979. I was 8. Yeah, it's actually an interesting series of adventures you can run by running those modules that leads right up into oh geez, I can't remember the name of it now. It's been so long. It's the one with the space aliens, anyways, right? And laser pistols and stuff that you can pick up. It was really interesting. I have some good memories of Keep on the Borderlands, though I never ran it. Though I was always as a player for it. I just picked the DM for the first time with Goodman Games reissue. Right on. Goodman Games reissued it. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to check that out. I learned how to use it to my advantage rather quickly, nearly dying a couple of times, only to survive due to the trait. Yeah. Songbird. You should be asking what you're doing with Saltmarsh. What are you doing with Saltmarsh, Songbird? My most memorable character death was also my shortest lived character. From the start of creating the character to the first character's death was in real life 15 minutes. His entire existence was he meets the group, being another person in the same dungeon. He turns a corner to the scout, another PC with him. He triggers a prismatic spray and trap and dies, sending the other PC directly to hell as well. Okay. We once were running a sci-fi game in the Star Wars system, the Star Wars D6 system, right? Where characters were dying so fast that the DM didn't actually have any logical reason why there'd be new characters there, right? We lost over 40 characters in one game session, right? He was doing things like, this character pops out from under the sink, you know? It was just crazy. And it was the same stupid stuff. People kept trying to find out what was going on, right? And they would look out the window, right? And die, right? Those of us who survived didn't look out the window. And we survived the night and made it out in the morning. Okay, True Undead Hero asks, so Sir Erin, oh, not a sir, but thank you, I'm a Righ. What advice do you have to give to someone who feels that they are not confident in their ability to run a homebrew campaign that is from their imagination rather than from a module? I will tell you, True Undead Hero, that if you have half an imagination, right, modules are just a good starting point. That's it, right? Your homebrew campaign will be more enjoyable to your players. Just it will. It's deeper, it's more fleshed out, it's more robust, right? You will just have a better chance of running a good game if it's in a homebrew world. All right, trying to resume the posture check. My posture sucks, and you know it. So, Goodman Games do a series they call Original Adventures Reincarnated. They have to original reprint with adverts and a 5th edition rewrite in the same book. Hopefully, they will do the full set for so far. That's cool. First time DMing, and I'm using the Saltmarsh books to start the encounter, but I'm trying to figure out how to merge the written material with my own building. Any suggestions? Well, I haven't read the Saltmarsh books. That's the big problem, so I wouldn't know what's the basic premise of them. I guess I could just dig one out. Alright, yeah, what Robert Reaper says is about the best thing I can say. If you like it, put it in your world. If you don't like it, just ditch it. It's not that important. Worlds don't make sense. Our world doesn't make sense. Right? There are fish in Japan that live in an acidic lake. The lake is, the rocks around it are so acidic that the lake is actually will burn you if you touch it. Right? And there are fish in it, and they can't live in any other water anymore. Just this acid water. Right? Does that make sense? No. But that's the way worlds are. So if it doesn't have to line up and match up, right? If you like it, keep it. If it's got something in there about a demon lord who is trying to redeem himself, keep it if you like that. If it's got something in there about a vampire who is trying to enslave a population and you don't like it, throw it out. It's not necessary. Right? Okay, Robert Reaper. The other quickest was a character that I never got to play. A friend joined a campaign and I didn't have a character, so I let him borrow my backup character because story-wise my current character was leaving the group soon. Backup character died that session. Yeah, I've had that happen. Right? We had characters die. Well, if you've ever played Paranoia, have fun with that. Paranoia, they give you 6 identical characters when you start the game. Clones of your character, because you'll die that fast. Yeah, Robert Reaper's right. Keep what you like, ignore what you don't. Alright? Yeah, that's exactly it. What Robert Reaper says there, if you like the idea of the demon lord but don't like how they are built, change them. Right? Right? Yeah, if you like the idea, a demon lord who's trying to redeem himself, but you don't like his stats, give him new ones. Just lower his strength. Right? Ain't gonna make much difference in the long run. Right? Especially if you raise his constitution so he has more hit points but doesn't do as much damage in combat. Right? Yeah. Yeah, Aegon is right. In Paranoia, you don't play to live. All the amazing ways to die is the fun of the game. Computer is your friend. For those of you who have never played Paranoia, it's the only game that you play that you're encouraged to cheat. You're encouraged to look at your opponent's character sheets when they're not looking and stuff like that. Yeah, the pipe, True Undead Hero, the pipe. Siobhan the writer, messing with your players is the only fun that a DM gets. Do I have any tips about pressuring a session? Okay, right. I am a pantser. Right? I don't prepare. Right? Right? I just fly by the seat of my pants, and I'm doing that. Tips about preparing a session, I would say try to come up with a goal for the session, right? For the players to do something that they're going to do in this session, not on the overall arc of the greater adventure, but maybe they're going to rescue their buddy from drinking Cthulhu brain fluid, right? You got to figure out what they're going to be doing, right? And that's just something that I generally tend to wing. Right? Dazzlecat asks, how creative are my puzzles and traps? Well, ask Siobhan. How do you keep up pacing smooth during a session, especially when the party wants to explore every room in a building? I tend to, if a party starts saying where they want to explore every room in a building, I slow the pacing down. Right? I assume that the game is going to take a lot longer, right? That the adventure is going to take a lot more sessions, and I take the goals for the session and I bring them down. If my session was they're going to explore this building, right, and it has 10 rooms in it, right, and they want to explore each room and examine each chandelier and stuff like that, then I say, well, in this session we're just going to explore the first floor. Right? And I slow the pacing down, and I use a lot more descriptions of the room and stuff like that. And occasionally I will just be flat out and say, there is nothing to see here. Right? And get them to move on. Right? Okay. Songbird asks, tips for creating dungeons and traps. I don't know how you create dungeons. I don't generally use them. Right? A dungeon is basically a flowchart. Right? You go from one room to another room. Did you solve the problem in this room? Yes, no. Right? That sort of thing. So you can do them just like a flowchart. Make a flowchart and say, right? Did they come up with answer to this question? Then they go to this room. If they didn't, then they don't move on. They, that sort of thing. Right? Traps. Creating traps, I like to think of, first of all, real life examples. Right? They used a lot of them around Vietnam. Right? They, in the jungle warfare and stuff like that. Right? And I like to be insidious about them because traps are cowards' weapons. Just that simple. Right? So they will kill a lot of people if they can. How do you like to set up your plots? Your plot, what methods do you use? I set up my plot to achieve a goal. For example, in the current campaign I'm running, the goal is trust. Learning to trust one another because they come from different walks of life and different backgrounds and different reasons for being there, and they have to learn to trust each other. So, right, I set up all my encounters to try and build trust with the characters. Lorraine asks, what methods do you use to gauge if a section of the day's plot needs to go faster or slow down? Monitor the pacing, I think is the term I want. I think I would start. Well, it's a matter of gauging the room, right? You know, when you walk into a party, you know whether or not you're dancing or talking, right? You know, if you walk into a party and everybody is sitting around playing Parcheesi, you know not to turn Led Zeppelin on, right? So if the players are interacting with you in a way that says that they're going to keep a slow pace and uh, explore every room to its fullest and stuff like that, then you know that the pace has to slow down. If the characters seem to be going, yeah, and, right, then you know the pace needs to speed up, right, because they're getting bored, right? You have to keep your players from being bored, right? And, right, basically, it's a matter of gauging the room. The players will let you know, right, if you give them a half a chance. Yeah, there is stuff about that in the cow event there. Tillers was saying there, you songbird. Yeah. You want my ideas. Okay. Right. I think that if you're playing in person, it's a lot easier to gauge the flow because you can tell. If you've got somebody sitting there twiddling on their phone and somebody there rolling his dice and somebody there trying to role play with you and somebody there telling jokes from the special they've seen on HBO, right? You know you're going too slow, right? If you've got everybody going, wait, where are my dice? What am I doing now? What, is it my attack? Right? You know, then you know you're going too fast. Yeah, Aegon is right. It takes some practice. And you get better as you run more and more games. Right? As things interact, you'll know whether or not the game has to speed up because you're losing players, or it needs to slow down because you're losing players. Robert Reaper says when he thinks traps, I always think first of the spike traps with poo on them that cause vicious infections during nom. Yes. Punji steaks. Yeah. Alright. Yeah. Alright. Lorraine says she don't throw on Led Zepp, but I would. Yeah. I get the idea too, yeah. You know, try and liven up that goddamn party. Robert Reaper says a random NPC can always slow down a session or speed it up depending on what they say. Exactly. Right? Throwing in an encounter. That will either speed up or slow down the play. Alright? E-Songbird says you can tell her pacing is off, but you can't figure out how to fix it in the moment. Okay, is your pacing off because you're losing your players due to being too slow? Or are you going too fast and they're just getting lost in the action? Okay, my suggestion is throw in some more action. Right? Usually modules have planned encounters, right? And you're using the salt marsh stuff, right? But if you can, what you do is you throw in a random encounter, right? Characters run into a wandering patrol of bugbears, you know, whatever, right? And while they're searching the room, you know, that you've told them for the 5th time there's nothing in, have some bugbears show up, right? And it will pick up the pace. Social interactions in town to gather information drag on. Okay, yes, I understand. I can understand how that can go too. Is it dragging on or is it just long sessions? That's the question you have to ask. Because if your players are having fun with it, then it doesn't matter how long the roleplay session is. I'm running a play-by-post campaign right now. One of my players are joining in from another thread because their character has to wrap up in their thread. I made the random healing shop clerk more significant, which slowed down the rest of the group. To my surprise, the group invited that NPC to join them on their quest. Yeah. Yeah. When I see my players starting to space, I look for something to smack them in the face with. I personally try and tie the encounter into the plot, but that takes practice. Yeah. Okay, if it seems to be dragging me, Songbird, right? Right? Right. It's that matter of pacing is really a matter of practice. It really is. You've got to balance between giving them too much information too fast and not enough information fast enough. Right? Basically, what my opinion generally is I decide about how long it's going to take them to find out the information ahead of time. So most systems have random systems for that, right? Your knowledge check will take 1d4 hours or whatever, right? I sometimes roll that. I sometimes randomly choose it'll take 3 hours, right? And then I let them role play through for 3 hours. And when the 3 hours is up, not 3 hours real time, 3 hours of game time, right? They go to the bar, they talk to the people, they order a drink, they go to the market, right? And go back to their ship, right? That's 3 hours, right? Then I give them the information, right? You know, that they would have got with their role. So while you guys were doing this, you found out that the gnome is really a dragon, right? Right. You can't allow them to be too sandboxy in their exploration, right? Right. Um. Okay. Was that me you're thinking, or Siobhan? Oh, okay. Thanks. Yeah, it's you can't let them be too sandboxy. That's the thing. You got to give them some direction, right? And if they start getting too sandboxy, throw in a random encounter. It puts them back on track, right? You know, if they're searching for information about the gnome who happens to be a dragon, have the gnome hire some thugs to beat them up in an alley, right? You know, then they realize they've got to get on with the plot, right? Or else they're just going to get beat up. Oh, you would love my world, Robert Reaper. Very rarely are things exactly what they appear to be. Yeah, True Undead Hero is right. You know, if they're taking the wrong steps, don't be afraid to have a random person burst in and say, "There you are, I've been looking for you." Yeah, exactly. Like railroad them a bit. Most dragons are very accomplished spellcasters in addition to being natural shape changers. Right? So, yeah. Dragons, demons, drow, you'll very rarely find them in another. Am I looking for another player? No, but I am considering starting up a Weird West game at some point in the future. And True Undead Heroes already asked to be in it. And so I may be considering that. It would be a Western situation, right? With gunslingers and desperados and magic and elves. Deadlands is yeah, very similar to what we do. Yeah. I played a lot of Deadlands. The only issue I have with running another game is that I don't know if I have time at the moment. Between my own projects and running the games I'm running. Right? But we'll see. Yeah, Athos was an interesting world. Combat, when I say have an encounter, it doesn't necessarily have to be a combat. You see, that's the thing. In my game, you do not get experience for killing the monster. Right? You get experience for defeating the encounter. So that means if 12 ogres jump out at you, and your guy convinces them that you're a circus troupe and puts on a show for them, they all become entertained and then walk away laughing, you still get all the experience for the ogres. Right? It's defeat the encounter, don't defeat the monster. Right? So if the dragon that the characters are looking for hires some thugs to defeat them, right? You could have the thugs talk to them first, or be in a situation where there could be a showdown, right? And then they could talk their way out of it. Right? It does pick up the pace, though. Anytime you throw in an encounter, it'll pick up the pace. Do you have fixed endpoints in your campaigns in general to allow you to move on to a new system, GM? Well, not exactly. Right. I play until a point where I don't have fun DMing it anymore. Right, and then I'll switch to something new. Right. If I run out of ideas. Right. Right. I don't use XP in my campaigns either. I level up the PCs when they are damn good and ready. Right. I use the DM's whim version of experience. Right. Do I end a group when they are level 20? Dazzlecat asks. Not necessarily. Right. I have played Epic in 3rd edition, right? And I played beyond 20th level in Pathfinder. Right? Right? If I still have ideas for the characters, I can make challenges for anybody. Yeah, you're right, Robert. I have a very similar thing too. If the PCs are working towards the thing that they're supposed to be getting, then I level them earlier. Right? If PCs are working on skills, I make sure that they have enough skill points. Right? I'm very fluid that way. Thanks. Robert Reaper says, I like your style. Yeah, I really like playing mythic games in Pathfinder. Right? I like their system for that. It makes superheroes without making impossible to defeat encounters. Right? Yeah. How do you come up with some interesting and strange locations off the top of your head? Do you have a list prepared or just come up with them on the fly? Well, to be honest with you, I like to look at fantasy imagery. Right? And when I do that, I can come up with fantasy locations. Right? They'll well, yeah, I come up with them on the fly, but I've researched them ahead of time. Right? By looking at pictures of fantasy art. If I see a fantasy art of a cabin in the woods, you know, I've got now a farm in Kanafi, right? You know, and I can describe this to the players now by describing what I've seen in the picture, right? A little wooden cabin overgrown with moss and, you know, that sort of thing, right? Until a dinosaur you kill comes back as an undead with mythic levels. Yeah. Yeah, mythic is fun, right? But, yeah. Characters have learned really quickly that in our mythic games that you can't just go around being murder hobos because you'll run into mythic shit. Dazzle Cat says the best DM advice that they ever heard was flow like water. I can sort of understand that, yeah. You gotta know when to flow like water and when to be like stone. Lorraine asks, question, how much post-game lore building have you and Sable had to sit and hash out to make those on-the-spot made places make consistent sense within the world? Sable and I have been together for 1993. So how long is that? 27 years. In that 27 years, we have been across Canada together, right? To most places in British Columbia, right? To numerous events where we hitchhiked and spent hours on the road with just ourselves talking. And, basically we hashed out things over the course of 27 years. Robert Reaver says, my old group was nothing but murder hobos and me, a role-playing heavy player. Yeah, needless to say, there's a reason that they are my old group. Yes, I understand that entirely. My old group was a bunch of murder hobos too, right? And my cousin and I, who ran the group, are much more into role-play. We've spent game sessions where we've spent like 3 game sessions and never rolled a die, right? You know, never even picked up a die. We just sat there talking and, you know, stuff like that. And character development. And, all right, yeah, it was, yeah. I had a character spare some goblins in a module I had run repeatedly. No one had ever spared the goblins before, so I rewarded them in the background. When they died much later at level 10, the goblin had made a cult around said character and prayed for a return. When she eventually found out about the cult, she was very excited. It was fun. That's, yeah, exactly. Right, sure. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Best advice I heard for role-playing was from Guy Slanders. Insert a giant banana, i.e. if you're having issue telling the story, put in a random thing that can tie your story together, or even just one part of the story to another part that can be tied to another part until it all fits together. Yes. Just tie it, because, like I said, things do not make sense in the world. Acidic fish. Okay? Right? They don't. Right? Right? They... Right? But for want of a nail, things could be so different. What if Lee Harvey Oswald had missed? Right? The whole world would be different now. Right? And so things don't have to make sense because things in real life rarely do. Thanks, Lorraine. Yeah, Guy Flanders is the great GM, yes. I've only actually watched his show twice now, so... Yeah, I'm of an opinion that basically insert an encounter is the way to go. If you find your game is lagging, insert an encounter. If you find your game is moving too fast, insert an encounter. Right? It will either pick it up or slow it down. Right? Insert something that changes the situation. Actually, no. Canada would not be a very different place if somebody assassinated the Prime Minister. We just have a new Prime Minister. Right? The Prime Minister is not that important in Canada. If somebody assassinated the Governor General, we might have a different Canada. True Undead Hero says, I often find myself working on my world and feel I am grounding my world in too much reality. At the same time, I feel that once I get a good foundation, I can start adding fantastical elements. It does bother me a bit, though. I would not worry about it. Right? Right? Yeah, what Lorraine says. Just do it. Put your stuff in your world. There's right above the backspace key on most keyboards is the delete key. Right? You can always delete it later. Right? Write it, put it in there, and get it down. Right? If it's grounded too much in reality, right? What's grounded too much in reality? Right? Remember, we are learning things every day that make things not real. Just a moment, I gotta sneeze. Sorry about that. Thank you, True Undead Hero. Yeah, like Lorraine says, though, just do it. Just put it down. You make sense of things later. I rolled a die, now I have whereabouts who change their form every few months. Multiple months make for complex lycanthropies. Yeah, that's true. Grounding things in reality isn't fun. We have enough reality. Be creative. Aegon is right. Right? Thanks for the blessing of health, True Undead Hero. I had the honor of playing in a game DM'd by Guy. I played a character that was gifted with a fishing line to help her in her journey. Post-apocalyptic game where we were each given normal items, but they were relics in this world. My player character used that line so many times during that campaign, from tying weapons together to carrying a dead pig to trying to sever a robot from its connector, etc. A random item can be used in so many ways to advance and change the story. Yes, that's absolutely true. Right? The worst encounter I ever had was in a post-apocalyptic game. Right? It was just, we'd been gaming for like 2 days, right? And my cousin was very good at putting in suspense, and my character got dragged under a car by something that he called a ground demon, which it was basically a ghoul, right? A human being that had gone blood hungry, right? And roamed around in the sewers, right? So this car was parked in the middle of the road because it's a post-apocalyptic world, and I was walking around it with my weapon, right? And it pulled me under, right? You learn really fast in a post-apocalyptic game that improvise. Robert Reaper, do you ever play the system Rapture? No, I'm not familiar with that one. The difference is in fantasy you often have magic, Shaman, right? And magic is the MacGuffin of everything, right? You know, you just like, oh yes, we fireball it. Even though sometimes that's a bad idea, as you found out with Thomas. You know, basically, magic changes the game. You know, if you're running a post-apocalyptic world where there is no magic, right? It's a very different experience. Because improvisation takes on a very different meaning. As I was saying, right, as you found out with Thomas about improvising, right, Thomas decided to fireball a bunch of troglodytes in a cave. Fireball has a 20-foot radius spread, right, and fills its area. This is in 2nd edition. It says it fills its area, right? They were in a hallway that was about 5 feet wide, right, and about 10 feet high. Right? So when I calculated out the area that the fireball would fill, it literally came back to the party, literally the square in front of them, and filled everything else in the area. So they got a little singed. So do you have a link for that system Rapture there, Robert? The AoE space rules from older editions go so many of my Images players burnt to a crisp. Yeah. Mages players burnt to a crisp. Yeah. Yep. It's an interesting system. Modern day world, but a dozen or so years ago, a war between heaven and hell began, and God raided the pool of souls and raptured all the innocents to fight the war. From humans' perspective, all children 12 and under suddenly died, but beyond that, everything seemed normal. What they didn't know was that all children born after that were born soulless and could be possessed by both demons and angels. Toys were also often possessed. That's okay. That's interesting. Yeah, that's unique. Yeah, I can see that. Fire-breathing Barney doll or Claude teddy bear coming for you. Yeah. Yeah, we used to do stupid stuff like our one game that we did. We got my cousin Ted and I would get upset with our players who always wanted to start new games. I think they were obsessed with the idea of making characters. Right? So whenever our friend Dean wanted to start a new game, we'd come up with the stupidest concepts we could think of for characters. Right? And try and make him run those. Right? So like one concept for a character was a mutant green rabbit named Bucky with a laser pistol in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. Right? And we came up with one with just clowns with Uzis. That was our whole concept. Siobhan says, min-maxing in the World of Darkness can have some major drawback, but also lead to some incredibly hilarious situations. Yeah, it can. Right? If you try and tweak too much in the World of Darkness, you can end up with really stupid characters. TMNT, yeah. I really hate the Palladium system. Hate it with a passion. Cool, Robert. Thanks for posting that link. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was probably the only good game that Palladium came up with for that. Right? It was simple and it was fun. Palladium, where nothing makes sense. Your first level characters are literally only 25% worse than your 15th level characters. Okay, I'll check my posture. There we go. The old black and white Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics. Yep. Those were not for kids. Yeah, secondhand, I'm pretty much the same too. I think I only played 1 out of 10 characters I ever made in that game too. Yep. Yeah, non-weapon proficiencies in AD&D were pretty bad. Okay, Trend Hero asks, what are some tips or advice that you can give when prepping a campaign? How much do you have planned out before the campaign begins? Well, it all depends upon the campaign, to be honest with you. I generally have a pretty good idea of where I'm going for the first 10 game sessions or so, right? And then I let the players dictate where it's going from there, right? Especially in a homebrew world, which is what you're talking about, right? You've got to give them some sandbox, right? Because if you can't, then you're just railroading them, right? And the whole objective is to explore your world, right? So, right, in prepping a campaign, I would have the local area made up, right? Not necessarily mapped, but you know, I would have an idea of who the local lord is and who the local sheriff is, and you know, stuff like that. What the local rumors are. Right? I can learn an intelligence entirely ability. I can get +1 in my existing one. Hard choice. Yeah, I can learn a new ability that I have about a 80% chance of success at, or get 5% better in my existing ability. Yeah. Be very careful about players running away with your game. Right? You got to give them enough sandbox and to have fun in, but you can't give them enough rope to hang themselves with, because players will. It's inevitable. Dazzlecat says a sandbox is still a box. Exactly. It's not a beach. That's good advice, Aegon. Aegon says create 5 or 6 small side quests with basic info, like in the starting area, and one quest that moves the story forward, or even tie the side quests into the main story. That's what I usually do. Yeah. All right. I generally have an overarching theme, things that people are going to be trying to accomplish while they're developing their characters, and then I put in encounters to help with the development of the character. So, for example, our characters in our game had to deal first with some smugglers, right? Then with some slavers, and then with some pirates. Right? And they're getting on towards where the war is about to start. True Undead Hero says, I have the first area that they go to. It's a small port town on an island with a reeve running the local government. The leader of the local militia and a few odd NPCs. I have the first initial quest, which is your captain was wounded in the very first fight. Find a doctor in town. Perfect. All right. Robert Reaper says, worst case scenario, if the PCs have no interest in following your plot, either make a new plot that they are heading towards or just move the existing plot in front of them. Yeah, exactly. The villain may be in the mountains, but he could easily be in the desert or the forest. He could be killing dwarves, but he could easily be killing elves or pixies or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, just twist it out of the way. All right. If the characters don't want to go find a doctor, all right. Let's see what I do. I would make it clear to them that the captain is their only way out of this bloody town. Right? You know, or if the captain is the local militia guard captain, I would make it apparent that if the local brigands find out that the guard captain is injured, they're going to cause problems. Right? It's a little railroading, but it helps get them going. Biggest tip, Aegon says, as the GM, your plot can be anywhere. All you need is the main point to be played out to inform or direct the players. Exactly. Trended Hero says, I guess I could tell them that because this is not a military vessel, it was a private vessel, the military will no doubt take it for their own means and they will be stranded here. Exactly. Right? Or you could tell them that, yeah. Yeah, no, I like that, yeah. Let them know that if they don't save their captain, they're not getting out. Unless they're walking. Hydrate. Thanks, Quillian. Maybe the captain needs a doctor, but the PC's favorite barmaid could be injured during a bar fight, and she also needs a doctor. Exactly. Right? That's weird. Okay, let me see what we got here. Lorraine says she's mildly tempted to do push-ups, sit-ups, to make Sable come in and do them. No, she'll make me do them. The PC says, maybe a ranger would fit the bill if the doctor is away. Exactly. You know, maybe they can get like a surgeon. It's funny because the doctor is not in any real trouble, but I have hinted that he is. They talk about the doctor having gone out for herbs and fear that the natives may have kidnapped him, and there is this weird suspicion about those natives, etc. But when they get there, the doctor willfully went there to help some of their warriors who were wounded, and he's just lost track of time. Yeah, that's a good plot point there, Trended Hero. More on topic. Question: what was your least favorite moment as a GM or player? Geez, I can't think of one off the top of my head. Least favorite moment. I think the least favorite moment I think I had was when my players all had a big explosion, right? And basically demanded that I throw one of the players out or they were all leaving. That's my least favorite moment. Yeah, Lorraine's right. A midwife instead of the doctor. The midwife might actually be better at the job. Okay, what was my most memorable moment caused by a player? Jesus. Had so many. I think the most memorable thing that I ever had was having one of my players take one of his dice and fire it out the window with a slingshot because he was so pissed off at it. That's the most memorable moment. That was Sable's ex. got so mad at his die that he shot it out into the creek with a slingshot. True Undead Hero says, my favorite moment was we got lost in the Feywild. I was an Eldridge Knight, and the only person in the party who spoke Sylvan, and the only person in the party was because of his backstory. He grew up in the Feywild despite being human. And we got to speak to a tree at the end, and we could speak Sylvan. I said yes, but because no one else did, he made the tree also speak Common, and that just made me really sad. Yeah, that's just, right? When you come up with a good background for your character, that's poor DMing there, True Undead Hero. All right, he should have given you the spotlight there. You came up with a good idea for a background of your character that made sense why he would speak Sylvan. All right, and then he made it irrelevant. That's not nice. Best snack brought by another player. I've had lots of things brought. I'd say pizza. Yeah, pizza and beer. After so many years of D&D, do you ever meet up with old friends to discuss old friends that never existed? Yeah. Yep. Yes, we do. Yeah. My party uses the anyone speak X, okay, you're translating. Yeah, I do that too, except for if I want them to actually translate it, in which case I'll take them aside and tell them what the tree said to them and let them actually translate it from remembering what I said, right? Because sometimes translations are not that accurate, right? Try and translate prepositions in Russian. They don't exist. So it's, Ironically, it was that moment that made me become a DM. Yes, you often run into that with a player who decided my DM was such an asshole, I figured I could do it better myself. Dazzlecat says, how do you handle critical fails? I had an encounter where everyone, including me, rolling for the monsters, rolled a 1. Alright, I give some really descriptive information on how you fumbled that bullshit. Alright, but I'm bribable. The DM's got to make a living, right? Do you use real PCs as NPCs? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Reuse all the PCs as NPCs, right? Right. Yeah, Siobhan's right. Sometimes the critical fail is more fun, and I will use that. But sometimes players can bribe me. Right? Just that simple. Right? And I'll fudge the roll for you. I built my whole world out of spite. No one can tell me X event can't happen because some book says otherwise, because no books have been written. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, critical fail is also like falling up the stairs. You're right. Yes, it can be. We had a situation in the game the other day where a character has a spell called Fumble, which is the exact opposite of a spell called True Strike, which makes your next D20 roll automatically roll a 1. Well, get minus 20 to it. Well, not only did the guy get minus 20 to his roll, he rolled a 1. Right? So as he was leaping over top gracefully over somebody who had fallen to get away from the party, the guy who had fallen thrust a hand up in the air and got him right in the groin, and he buckled over and hit the street, right? It was, yeah. When critical fail happens to me, it depends on the attack. If they are firing a weapon, they have a chance that the weapon jams or breaking. If there's an ally, they may hit them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just come up with something incredibly bad for the character, right? For example, one character in our last game fumbled and stabbed one of his own party in the leg. He still has not lived that down because they won't let him, right? You know, it's fun because he keeps bringing up about, you know, maybe I should get some shin guards and stuff like that, right? You know, don't let Xerxes behind you. Yeah, I've made as much as probably $100 in PCs buying experience and stuff. Right? Right? I had one player bribe me for $20 to give him a +5 Holy Avenger for his first level Paladin. Right? So I did. Best PC nickname? I don't know. PC nickname. Yeah, that was a pretty good one, Siobhan. Chica Crash Malia. They called him Crash because we were playing in the Star Wars D6 system, right? And he was in a spacesuit, but he ejected out of a TIE fighter in low atmosphere, right? And ejected towards the planet, right? Bounced off the head of an AT-AT, smashed through some trees and stuff like that, and only got stunned. He didn't even take any damage. He just got stunned. He spent a force point to double his strength roll and just got stunned. You know, falling from atmosphere. Peach Keen. Yeah, Dazzle Cat, I'm pretty much there too. My rule is something bullshit happens and I end up with a bullshit chain that ended up with the dragon tripping and sitting on the horns of the Minotaur who had just fallen over the gnome, who had slipped on a glass of water splashed by the halfling rogue who belly flopped into a pool. Yes, exactly. Right? You know, I do stuff like that too, and yeah. I had an Ewok pirate in West End Games Star Wars. He didn't speak any basic except for swear words. So he would say, like, Ita Beta, motherfucker. Yeah, R2FU, that was my droid. My cousin came up with that one. R2FU, right? He was a mouthy droid, that astromech droid that demanded that I pay him. In our game, the crime lord that took over for Jabba the Hutt when he died was a Jawa. And nobody suspected him. Oh yeah, spend a force point when you got like 15 dice in the force. 30 dice! And then you got exploding dice on top of it. Yeah, what Shavad's referring to there, human-cyborg relations and eliminations, is my protocol droid that I had, that I played, that they put an assassin droid chip into. Right? So he had like really good gun skills and stuff, but he's a protocol droid, he's C-3PO. Right? So he was specialized in human-cyborg relations and eliminations. That's a cool idea for the engineer there, Robert Reaper. What was one of the craziest things your players ever did that you allowed? I'll allow them to do anything. I think an attempt, anyways. Yeah, that happened. Alright. One of my NPCs killed Boba Fett by accident. Hydrate. Okay. You know, it's not really good for hydrating when I'm drinking coffee, right? Yeah, one of my characters, as I was saying, killed Boba Fett and then took his armor and pretended to be him for a while. I also remember when my assassin droid, right? Not the human cyborg relations eliminations, a different one named Proctor Silex, right? Encountered Darth Vader, and I shot him, and I had so many dice that I shot him in the head and killed him. We had to fudge that one. Yeah, the truth of the matter is, as far as Jedi goes, is it depends on the era. There were times when there were huge Jedi families and stuff like that, right? But, yeah. Right? But, yeah, there's no saying that a Jedi can't participate in sex. What advice do I give to world building in a world used only for tabletop RPGs? Don't be too specific, right? The harder you write something down, the less flexible it is. Yeah, Tillers is right. Make it interesting and leave some open areas, right? Because it's for a tabletop RPG, which means that your players are going to want to make it their own. Right? If you put everything in a world all static, that was the problem with the World of Darkness, right? All the leaders of the World of Darkness were already made up, and there was no changing it, right? You know, because the fact of the matter is that your 8th generation vampire cannot take on a Methuselah. He just can't. Alright? And, you know, so if you make it too, yeah, as Janet says, writing sentences and paragraphs only, yeah. Yeah, if you make it too rigid, your players won't have any fun in it. So give it enough area that they can make it their own. Okay, we'll see you there in a little bit there, E Songbird. Alright, we're gonna raid you when we're done here. Thanks so much for coming, E Songbird. Alright, hope I've been of help to you. Plan on doing this every Friday, so I just think this is similar to China with mages. All else is open yet. Yeah, Tillers says that he just has some defined basic information in his world, like this is like China with mages, right? And then leaves it all open. Okay, Robert Reaper says, in my current campaign, I told the PCs that religion is up in the air, so any god they want to use or make, they can do so. First thing a PC did was make their temple a rival of another PC's temple. Sure, why not? Right? You can easily have rivals of the same god. We do on Earth. Right? And anybody who doesn't think that that is a thing should go to Ireland. When I was in Ireland, when I was 16, I met some Irish Catholic kids who were convinced that they could tell Protestant kids by the slope of their forehead. Right? That's the same God. Yeah. That was when I was there. DM Stretch was in the 80s. What is my opinion on character backstories and how they relate to your game? I think they're absolutely essential. Right? Nobody's born in a vacuum. No man is an island. Right? So your character was somebody before they got here. Right? How did they get here? What motivated them to get to this position in their life? They're now a first level fighter. What brought them there? And that's absolutely important in my games. Right? You'll find that your past will come back to haunt you, but they also come back to grant you favors in the future if you're good with your backstory. If your backstory is that your parents are friends with the king, right? Good night, Tillers. Aegon is right, and character backstories are great for building narratives. Thanks for coming, Tillers. So see you later, and right, thanks for hanging out with me. Yeah, so I don't really allow players to have characters without a backstory. Right? It's got to be basic, anyways. I'm an orphan that has spent my whole life trying to get ahead, and I'm just now a first level fighter, right? You know, whatever, right? You know. What is the most outlandish backstory of a character I can remember? I don't know, Siobhan. I can't think of any right now. Right? No. Yeah, I always have my players explain why they became an adventurer too. Yeah. Right. That was the first session 0 in our current game. Is why did you join the Navy? Yeah, we got a bit of Games Workshop, a bit of White Dwarf, right? Their Secondhand Samurai, right? Warhammer made it here and was massive in my childhood too, right? Yeah. Robert mentioned question: when is a time that you had to remove a player from a campaign and why? Okay, I've only ever had to remove one player from a campaign, right? And that's because I'm pretty good at fitting in even the most esoteric sorts of things into a standardized setting, right? But the one thing that I did is I had a campaign where the backstory of my campaign was in this particular area, the elves and dwarves had been fighting for like 100 years, right? And so I told the characters that they were to play good guys and play on one side or the other of that divide, right? So in other words, if their players were playing elves, I didn't want any dwarves, right? Unless they were going to play to get along. You know, because like I said, I'm pretty good at fitting things together. Well, the first thing that happened was the player wrote up a lawful evil dwarven cavalier. Like, that's going to get along, right? And then basically was antagonistic throughout the whole first game session until the players, well, one of my players walked out, and a couple of my other players went off to have a smoke, so I went out there to have a smoke with them. They said, look, either he's got to go or we're all leaving. Right? You know, he was just being antagonistic and... Right? Yes, I remember that. Siobhan is one of my longtime players. I've known her for over 20 years now. Okay. I talked to the problem player, GGD Games, alright, you know, and he was antagonistic towards me too. Right, basically with that, well, I'm just playing my character type thing. Right? You know, and so I said, look, you know, you're just not fitting in here. You know, I did talk to the problem player, though. Of course I did. Right? What does GG Games stand for? Yeah, I hate that excuse too. I'm just playing. Good game games, okay? I hate that too. I'm just playing my character like it's an excuse. You know, right? Character is not a static thing, right? It comes out of your imagination, so consequently, if it's being antagonistic, you're being antagonistic. Okay, Robert Reaper says, I had a custom campaign that I was running online where I had each player submit things that they wanted to encounter in the campaign. I gave them a list of races, items, locations, etc. The world ended up with bugbears, gnomes, fairies, and to my surprise, halflings, squirrelings, and kender. One of the players hated kender and refused to play if they were in the campaign. I told him that they didn't have to be the kender that he knows, and I changed the aspects he didn't like, but yeah. Same thing in mine. He was good in the first campaign, but the second campaign we had, he made a solo character who didn't mesh and harass the others to the point where two of the players nearly left. Yeah. Yeah, you can have players like that sometimes. But he wouldn't have it after another player said that the person was a problem in another campaign with them. I thought it'd be best for them to leave the group. Yeah. Yeah, I understand that too. You know, some people are just problem players. Some people just don't play nice with others. That's just the way it is. All right. Okay, Dazzler Cat, have fun with your family D&D game. You playing with your kids, Dazzler Cat? Okay, well, say your other question there, Undead Hero. Nice, Dazzler Cat. That's pretty cool. Right? I'm the only member of my family that games. So. What advice do I give someone who's worried their players may not mesh but love their concepts? Okay, I'd have to know more about the characters, right? Is it the players that are not going to mesh, or is it their characters that are not going to mesh? That's true, Siobhan. We are family. Yeah, that's pretty interesting background there, Robert. Yeah, as I say, Undead Hero, is it the players you're afraid are not going to mesh, or their concepts? Their characters. Okay, that's easier to deal with than players, to be honest. Right? What exactly is it? All right. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. All right. What exactly is it about their character concepts that you don't think will mesh? Oh, hell. GG Games. Alright, I love players being surprised and look for new ways to bring the unexpected to them, too. If you really want my advice, I say that I don't know what your games company produces. Alright, I haven't seen any of your products yet, but Raging Swan Press puts out things called 20 Things and stuff like that. They are really incredibly good tables for random stuff, for, you know, what do you find in the pocket of a dead adventurer, you know, stuff like that. They're from wildly different backgrounds, all heading to the new world for personal organization. Ah, thank you, Kiwi Sanctuary, for following. Alright, organization. Okay, how many players are you talking about? Trying to run a game. It's too big to apart. Right. Oh, I'm sorry, GG Games. I just assumed that with that sort of name, you were a producer. That's cool. 3 or 4 players from different regions, and they're all traveling to the new world for organizational reasons or personal reasons. That seems like a good enough reason for them to get along to me. Alright? You just got to give them the space to do so. How new are your players? Like, have they ever been in a campaign before, or are these like brand new players too? They are veterans. We played 4 campaigns together. Then this shouldn't be a problem. To be honest, if they're actual veteran role players, you put them on the boat. Alright? That's where you start them. You guys arrive at the docks with your bags, ready to go on the boat to go to the new world. Right? You see this person, you see that person. Yeah, Kiwi Sanctuary is right. I think it makes a good role-playing opportunity too. Yeah, Lorraine has got a good point too. We have our reasons to go here, but once we get here, we don't know many other people that stay in contact or as a group while we make contacts in the new world. Yeah, right. You know, what I generally tell my players is that it's up to you to get along. Right? I will give you every opportunity to get along with the other players, but if you don't, that's on you. Right? I think you are worrying too much, Undead Hero. That's a neat concept, Robert. Robert said he was having the PC's reaction to their creation alter how their gods looked and acted. Right? They were crafting their gods at the same time they were being crafted. Yeah, that's an interesting metaphysical sort of beginning there. Kiwi Sanctuary. You got this trend at Hero. I think all the pieces will fall together and necessary, and especially your players are being fast. I think you can piggyback ideas off another and enhance the story. Exactly. Kiwi Sanctuary is so right there. Right? The biggest thing you got to remember is that everybody's here to have fun. Right? We're not here to solve the whether or not Homer wrote the Iliad or another blind poet named Homer wrote the Iliad. We're not here to discuss that. We're here to have fun. Right? And so they're going to try to have fun. Right? And if you don't have antagonistic players, which you can get, but you say they're all vets and they're all friends, so, they're going to want to try to have fun. So they will try to put things together the way that you want them to. Yeah, Siobhan's right. Right, as far as that goes, since she created a feat, I had people have to learn it from her. Right, it was before the book came out that had it in it. Right. Posture check. Yeah, you're looking at me leaned over like that. Lorraine always looking out for people. Oh, I wear glasses. I'm just not wearing them right now. No, I'm blind as a bat, to be honest with you. I used to worry about character motivations a lot too until I started to read up Pulp Fiction Conan. Yeah, it inspired me to just embrace the larger-than-life characters. It typically fits the PC archetype. Yes. Yeah, your characters are larger than life. They aren't anti-heroes. They aren't okay, people use the term anti-hero wrong. Right? One of my favorite shows that I've ever seen is Stan Lee's Lucky Man. Right? And the reason I like it is because the main character of it is an anti-hero. And an anti-hero is just it's not an anti-hero. It's not like the Punisher who does anti-heroic stuff. It's that they are not heroic. Right? They're normal people. They have normal reactions. They have normal feelings. Right? And I love that. But most of the times your characters are not anti-heroes. They are heroes. Want to eventually become a pro DM. Even did my first con last year. Right on, Robert. So I try to challenge myself while still making it fun. So I like to have the players input into the world so I can end up with unique things like hag draining life from fairies to power our magic and flood the lands. Yep. Extending the swamp so that the tower their master is trapped in can be freed from the clockwork guards at its base, or has a steampunk city-sized gnome submarine attacked by an army of marrow-using krakens. Oh, that's pretty cool. Question: what recommendations do I have for people for homebrewing things abilities, such as in Siobhan's example? My biggest thing is compare it to other similar things. Okay? Alright, right? That's game balance is the biggest thing that you gotta worry about when people are inventing things in your game, like feats and abilities and, stuff like that. right? You have to worry about the game balance, right? Sometimes you can fudge that a little, right? Like if your character is making a new class, right? You can have them gain an ability at an earlier level because they invented it, for example. Where normally you'd have to be 6th level to gain the super parry ability of the duelist, right? You gain it at 4th level because you're the inventor of the class, right? You can do stuff like that, right? To make them a little special. But when you're homebrewing things like and abilities, try to keep them compared to other things. The biggest one that I find that I have always seen problems with is spells. People who create spells seem to have no idea what level they should be. Alright? I've seen spells that rival Wish at like 5th level. And I've seen spells that were no more powerful than Fireball at like 8th. Right? Question, what's the favorite monster I created? Favorite monster I created? I don't know. The favorite monster that I ever put together was my multi-headed dragon, half mechanical, half a bunch of other things, half dragon that I created, Great Worm. That was about a level challenge rating 46 creature or something like that, right? That I put up my epic party up against, and they suplexed it and killed it. I added basically every template I could find in 3rd edition to a monster that would work. Oh yeah, I remember Family of Inbred Red Dragons that I created too. A brother and sister red dragons who had like deformed children because they were closely related in mating. I was using the epic open-ended dice roll, exploding dice rules for D20s, and had a guy roll 87 on a strength check while punching a blast door. Or 97 because he had plus 10 to his strength. He rolled 4 20s in a row and a 7. So any other questions from people today? Yeah, I've had stupid stuff like that. It happened to a person lose control of a sphere of annihilation and kill themselves. I actually created spells that literally just do that, make you lose control of things you're controlling, right? Or steal control of them, or transfer control to another person. Right? How do I make settings feel interesting? They'll do that on their own, True Undead Hero. Do I believe in dice jail or similar in tabletop superstitions that you hold? The only tabletop RPG superstition that I hold is that I buy each of my players, when they first join my game, a new set of dice. Right? And that's a superstition that I've done since I started gaming 43 years ago. Do you think there's such thing as the ultimate campaign, and if so, what themes, concepts of your ultimate campaign? I don't think that there is such a thing as an ultimate campaign. No, I think that all of them are good. Right? I think that I can have fun pretty much playing anything, so it doesn't make me sad if the world isn't what I expected. Right? But I don't believe that there is an ultimate campaign, and what themes or concepts would mine include? Fun. That's all. You know, depends on what we're doing, what kind of campaign we're playing. Robert Reaper, yeah, the ultimate campaign is where everyone has a great time, yes. Yeah, I've had a dragon pick up the paladin and start beating the fighter with him. What are you saying there, Siobhan? In-game minigames that would take an entire session because everyone had so much fun? Right? These are things that you would include in your ultimate game. Scope and scale really change up between games. It's really your mood in RPGs that are a mush. Yeah. Right? The mix of people playing really matter. Never play with people you wouldn't go for a second night out drinking with. Exactly. Never game with anybody you wouldn't drink with. What are some of the mini games in the overall game? Oh shit. Well, we've had a lot of different things happen. We've had characters invent hockey. Right? Orcs discovered hockey, and they discovered that they liked hockey. Right? And yeah. Right? We had gnome ball, which is sort of like football with a live gnome. In fact, if you can drink during the game, it's even better. Have I ever played X-Crawl? No, but I have looked it over, and I was intending to play it at one point. What's your question about X-Crawl there, Robert? Ah. Or drink. I need liquor in this. Sure, it'd be fun to go out, but two aren't old enough to get drink in the U.S. and the whole time zone thing. Yeah, I'm sure. Yep. Sat on the saddle, which immediately exploded. Discord is down. Okay. Good to know. A huge peal of thunder. Yeah, the orcs and hockey thing came about basically with orcs finding Earth. What was the funniest scene ever created by a single player? I'd have to say probably Belvarn's spinning blades of death would be the funniest thing that I ever seen. That's because we had epic characters. They were all better than 20th level. Trying to disarm traps in 2nd edition. None of us were any good at it. None of us put any points into remove traps. No, I don't think the Belvarn Thomas interaction was as funny as that. Yeah, that's what I liked about Shadowrun. You know, like, I really liked the concept. I played an elven biker in Shadowrun. What was the funniest moment created by the group? Funniest moment created by my group. I think that would have to be the don't let the villain soliloquy portion, where the characters were sent out to fight a army of undead, right? And basically, that the thing was they had to fight their way to the main bad guy and then defeat him, right? But they had a flying ship. Right? Yeah, so they flew their ship over the undead army, right? And when they got within range, the villain started yelling at them, basically, his soliloquy, and they just shot him with a cannon. They aimed a cannon at him and shot him. And hit. Most people do not survive direct hit by a cannon. Geez, internet's falling apart. I called that session Never Let the Villain Soliloquy. Dumbest move done by a character who survived it? That'd probably be Belvarn trying to stab a horse in the nuts while he was underneath it. Who was my favorite PC and who was my favorite PC made by another player? My favorite PC that I ever had, his name is Selnaris Kimarne. He is an elven arcanist now, according to his conversion to Pathfinder, that I have been playing since 1979 in the Keep on the Borderlands campaign that I first DM'd. Right? Yeah. He's gone through many, many iterations. He is thousands of years old. My favorite PC ever created by another player was created by Diane Sable, right? And it was her paladin character. Right? Yeah. Right, but her paladin she made a cursed paladin who couldn't have any deep emotions, because if he did, he would turn into a green dragon, and that was psychotic and trash the countryside. Right? Right? That's my favorite character of anybody else's. Liked him so much, I even named a character after him. In the same world, he was named for this other character. But Selnar is still my favorite character. Right? I know him inside and out. I've never stolen another player's character and used it as a character. I have stolen other people's characters and used them as NPCs. Alright, and I've often taken characters who we've retired games and advanced their characters. Like, say we retired a game in year 350, right? And then we pick it up again in the year 400. Right? I'll advance your character 50 years and make him a major NPC in the world and stuff. Right? And use your concept. Assuming they could live another 50 years, that is, that sort of thing, right? Yeah, shit for brains. My cat just woke up. Nope, now she's going back to sleep. The best result of a critical roll that I've ever had was, as I said, when Axel, a epic monk, punched a door and rolled a 97 on his strength check. Which is roughly, what would that be, 1 in 160,000 chance of that ever happening. It's only one character that I reused as a PC, and even as a LARP character, he was a rogue scout that would always go backstabby, stab before stabbing somebody in the back with his broadsword. Backstabby, stab. That's funny, Robert. Not in second edition, but in first edition I did. I actually rolled 1800 for strength, yes. That's true. Siobhan did that actually, rolled 1800 while nobody was looking, and I made her re-roll it, and she rolled 00 again, so. We once had a group of characters who were, in first edition, all fighter thieves, dual classed or multi-classed, and the weakest of the characters had an 1850 strength. It was fucking hilarious. We had like 12 of us running around, and the guards would go, "Look at those thieves," and the other guard would go, "Shut up, maybe they won't notice us." Dubious. God of all unseen dice rolls, yep. I've rolled a character that had all 18s except 116. That's the character I rolled an 1800 strength on. And that was my ninja. But then again, I probably rolled up 10,000 characters. Like, not with exaggeration. Do I have any questions for you? Huh. Questions for you. What game did you first start with? I'd like to know that from the people here. What was your first game? Forest of Doom Fighting Fantasy 2 Player Edition. Cool. AD&D. Which edition, Siobhan? First game was Swedish RuneQuest knockoff called Drakkar and Demoner. I've played that. Sorry about the yawn there, people. I used to have some old original stuff. Alright, old original gray box set for basic D&D. Alright, then I had a cat that was incontinent and got into our storage room and shat all over everything. I still have my Shadowrun book that my son decided to play chemist in. He was about 3 and he got up before we did and got into my girlfriend's perfume and cigarette tubes. Right? And spilled like 4 bottles of perfume into my Shadowrun book. That was 27 years ago. It still smells like perfume. Okay. Yeah, I've had that too. I had a player actually write up all of the Marines in Aliens and want to play them. Yeah, yeah, it is like getting used to running multiple characters is interesting. And not the easiest thing.
Hi.
Hi.
I thought I'd come hang out with you for the last few minutes of the stream, if you don't
Okay,
mind.
sure.
Hi, kid.
Guys on the table?
They might recognize me. I had to stop and pat my cat, so I have to do this so I can be in the stream, but that's okay. What were we chatting about? Because I missed the
we're
past
just
couple minutes. I've been in and out. I haven't been watching.
yeah,
the
we've
whole time.
been chatting about people's first game systems and
Awesome. Mine was the basic red box set of Dungeons and Dragons that had the crayon for the D20 in it. Or, well, all the dice actually, but yeah, that was my first. And then I played first edition for like one campaign, and then I went right into AD&D from there. So
yeah. Well, my first game was the old wooden box set of Mazes and Monsters.
yeah.
That Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson put together for the 76 Gen Con. Right? My cousins picked it up at the 76 Gen Con, and I played it in 77.
Yeah, I don't know, like, he's, this is why I say he's been around, he's done this a lot. Hey, so I saw the thing about, do you have any questions for us? I got a question to ask people.
Okay.
What's your favorite game system, guys? Your personal favorite? Or have we already discussed that? Did I miss that conversation? Because I would love to know what people like to play.
Yeah. 5e from Robert.
Okay, that's cool.
Like I said, I've been looking into 5e, and it looks okay.
We play tested D&D next. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we do intend to convert our worlds to 5e eventually.
Mithras is a really good game system, yes.
I am totally unfamiliar with that one, baby. Tell me about it.
It's European.
Neat.
I think, isn't it? I think it's European, isn't it?
I'll have to look at that.
Yeah.
Thanks for the recommendation.
I've never played it, but I've looked through the book.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, whatever I can get my hands on, except 4e and Palladium.
Pretty much my opinion, too. I found Rift such a personal disappointment.
Rolemaster Classic has a big place in my heart, too, secondhand. Claw Law, Arms Law, Spell Law.
Yeah,
right,
this is a hard question, isn't it? Is that okay? So now we have a moral obligation to find and play this game. You know that, right?
Which Mithras?
Yeah, that's right. Because we're Canadians, so.
I am Canadian.
That's right. Yeah, so clearly we got to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, 4E was literally made by somebody that never played D&D. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what was going on there, but I've heard that 4E was created because of the popularity of games, MMORPGs like World of Warcraft, and people were like, hey, people are starting to understand this kind of system based on these video games. Maybe we should make a game system that's like the video games. But in my personal opinion, they took everything out of it that was working and left everything that wasn't. It's just my personal opinion. Lots of people really like 4E.
It was built off the Miniatures Handbook of 3.5, yeah. Right.
Castles and Crusaders, I've played that one. That's a cool game. It was a long time ago. Yeah, 4th edition is the best pen and paper WoW out there. Yeah.
What is a WoW?
World of Warcraft.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was exactly what I thought when I read it. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. But no, 5e, the playtest was good. So
yeah, I liked the playtest. It was good. All right. I haven't played it yet, but I will, and I do intend to convert all of the Toy Soldier stuff to it, and the Weird West stuff to it.
Yeah. I was gonna say about Palladium's Rifts world, right? I found this a big personal disappointment because I love the concept so much. It was like, you can have anything from any era and it can all interact, and I was like, fuck yeah, right? It was just, and they made up their own in-game lore that was really cool, and their history of their world was, really amazing. And I absolutely hate and deplore the system. Right? And it probably doesn't help that the two most sexist DMs I ever played with were my first two experiences in that system. To be fair, I do have to, I can't. It probably contributed, to be fair.
Yeah, I was doing my best to play it with my other character on their website, which I was paying for. He was valid after they changed the build of the class. That was when I was done. Like, I got rid of something that was prereq for the last 2 levels, and I could no longer play it. Yeah.
Brutal. Secondhand Samurai says, Wraith the Oblivion is my favorite game. I've never got a group to play through properly. Shadows are just hard.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta have a good GM to play Shadows. I've done a mixed Wraith campaign, right? We weren't actually playing fully Wraiths, but we had Wraiths involved in our werewolf campaign.
Our various World of Darkness hodgepodge, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Mythos is a D100 system like Ruin Quest, but they have added combat a lot more complex, so a very deadly system where one blow could end it. Perfect mix of simulation and hero fantasy. Yes.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I'm gonna have to check that out. Thank you for the recommendation. I'm serious.
Like
I now have a moral obligation to play this.
I've been looking through. I thought it was European, but if it's Canadian, that's even cooler.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, you sound like you've been having a great time in here.
I've been having fun. About 2 minutes, we're gonna go off and raid Songbird.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to shout out Italia C, by the way. This was kind of a last minute idea, right? And the reason why we chose this slot is because, first of all, we wanted to kind of space out our streams over the course of the week, and there's a big pause between Wednesday and Sunday, right? But the other thing was that there was only one thing going on, and I figured that, Italia does world building and writing specifically, and I figured, well, this is something completely different, so you can't avoid overlapping people in the schedule, but you can try not to, you can try not to stream the same thing at the same time, is my logic, right? But then she took her thing off the schedule. I'm hoping that wasn't our fault, right? So if it was, I apologize, right? And definitely go check out her channel. She does some amazing stuff, right? It's ETALIA, capital C, right? So, Secondhand says, was she on today? No, she was scheduled to be on today when I scheduled the stream last night on the calendar, but she canceled it by the time I looked at it this morning. So, but that's like, I'm in Pacific time here, so I'm slow. I'm gonna go to, we're not gonna see you for a minute here, because I'm gonna go to the Anvilite Streamer Core, there it is, website, right? This is where you can find the streaming calendar for all the various World Anvil streamers, and shout out to them, they're all awesome.
Yeah.
Should I be scrolling back to see what I missed in the chat?
No, I've been going to the chat.
Okay, cool. All right, and if anybody has any more questions, right, because we're at 3:01.
Yeah, any quick questions you guys got before we end this stream and we go and raid Songbird?
In the meantime, thank you so much for the follows. We had a few.
When's the next GM session? That's Friday.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing this every Friday at noon to 3.
Noon to 3 Pacific time, Fridays. It's on our calendar schedule now, and it's on our Twitch site. So I'm just going to check out the stream manager here. Oh, no, you put that in the different window.
Yeah, go down there.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's cool. So, yes, follows and subs. Okay, so thank you, Kahuna, for the raid. Thank you, Tillers, for the bits. Thank you for the incredible, 10 community subs, Lorraine.
Yeah.
You are amazing.
You're amazing, Lorraine.
Thank you for the follows, Vorbara. I don't know if you're still around. Vorkosigan Saga, just curious. Vorbara, Robert Reaper, and scrolling, Kiwi Sanctuary. So thank you all so much for all the support, guys. You're amazing.
Well, thanks for the great weekend wishes, and
yeah, I hope you guys have a great weekend too. Oh, Italia wasn't feeling well. Okay, I feel better. That's good.
Good.
Okay, I didn't want to you know, steal her thunder. So we're going to raid Songbird. Right? And we'll set that up.
Can you go back to the stream now?
Sorry.
We're raiding.
Yes, we're raiding. Well, I was just
We're
looking at the...
raiding now.
All right, and have a good afternoon, guys.
Yeah.
See you later.